That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Mufasa, the Lion King. The fourth narrative feature directed by Barry Jenkins, which Walt Disney Studios is releasing December 20th, 2024.
I know Barry Jenkins did Moonlight. Mm-hmm. What else?
I know you were in the room when I watched Medicine for Melancholy for the first time, way back when, his debut, which is also excellent. He did the series The Underground Railroad, and his last feature was a really great James Baldwin adaptation, If Beale Street Could Talk, which Ms. Regina King, of course, won her Oscar for.
Yes. What is Mufasa, the Lion King about? Mufasa, a cub lost and alone, meets a sympathetic lion named Taka, the heir to a royal bloodline. The chance meeting sets in motion an expansive journey of a group of misfits searching for their destiny. That sounds more fun than the movie I watched.
Same.
What's your pull quote?
The circle of life flatlines in this mundane, redundant Lion King prequel, which sacrifices charm, heart, and comedy in the pursuit of vanguard visuals. The script is listless and explicitly shallow, unable to be saved from undistinguishable voice work performances and the tepid repetitions of its narrative.
Dang. Mine. When I ponder great animated films, I think of memorable songs, funny characters, and heartwarming stories that teach a valuable lesson. Unfortunately, Mufasa the Lion King doesn't possess any of those qualities.
You know, part of the circle of life is death. And I think that in two ways to reference that is children, should be an excellent way for them to be accustomed with that through, you know, reality, albeit through a animated and or cartoon form. But also, some things we need to let die. Why are we continuing with this story still, especially in this fashion?
I don't think this is the worst movie I've seen.
No,
it feels uninspired and, yeah, just not memorable.
I mean, I wasn't excited for it, but I was very interested to see what Barry Jenkins would want to do with this. And it feels like no one's heart is in this.
No. Even the voice work feels like people just showed up and said the lines.
I mean, it's dedicated to the memory of James Earl Jones, who sadly passed away this year, and he declined to reprise his role. But, you know, the 2019 rehash of this that Jon Favreau directed, James Earl Jones did voice Mufasa in that. But even the voice work in that film, which I didn't particularly care for either, sans Beyonce, I mean, just, you know, you had Alfred Woodard in there. I don't know.
Anyway, the story is about how Mufasa became the Lion King, and it's basically told...
It's framed.
It's framed around Rafiki telling Kiara the story of how her grandfather became king. And Kiara is the daughter of Simba and Nala, voiced by Donald Glover and Beyonce.
And Kiara's voiced by...
Blue Ivy, who I thought did a good job.
She does what she's supposed to.
Yeah. But basically, we find out that when Mufasa was a cub, he became a stray because he got carried away by a sudden flood. And he ends up meeting another lion cub named Taka. And Taka's mom, Eshe, voiced by
Thandiwe Newton,
she decides to take him in at the behest of her husband. What's the dad's name?
Osabi.
I mean, we need to get into it, but he is vehemently against strays, outsiders. He's telling poor Mufasa, like, you stink, I don't want you anywhere near me, and...
You gotta hang out with the females.
But before that even happens, Eshe says, well, how about this? Because the dad wants to eat Mufasa, and Eshe says, wait a minute, why don't we have a race? Like, Taka and Mufasa have to race to like some tree and back, and if Mufasa can get back first, he can stay. And Taka lets Mufasa win. So the dad says fine, but he has to live with the females. He can't even be around the men, which ends up helping Mufasa because we see Mufasa grow up. We see that he and Taka become very close. They're like brothers, as they say. And Mufasa has developed the skills of the female lions because they're the more skilled of of the pride.
Yeah, they do the hunting.
Because he can do the hunting and
Tracking,
smelling. But he also is a male, so he's bigger and stronger. So he's like the ultimate lion.
Blade.
But, and again, we have to talk about how the story's constructed, but there is this white pride of lions.
Uh-huh.
And the leader of that pride is voiced by
Mads Mikkelsen, Kiros.
And he's the villain. And he's been going around the land basically taking everyone's kingdoms.
They're basically committing genocide.
And displacing all of these lions.
And it's a refugee crisis story.
And this white pride displaces Taka, and Mufasa's now like orphaned home. So now you just have Mufasa and Taka, who for half the movie I thought he was saying his name was Tucker.
Yeah, and I kept thinking of Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, but the two of them are trying to find a place called Malele. I didn't realize that in The Lion King, the kingdom that Mufasa is the king of is Malele, but what?
I know a place where you can get away. It's called Malele. Oh. And it's such a bore.
But they're looking for this place, and the reason Mufasa knows about it is that before he got swept away from his mom, she was telling him about it and how one day they're going to get there. You can imagine it in your mind. But it seems like every animal in the land, every species knows about Malele, and they all think it's fake. But these two are going to go. They end up bumping into a female lion named
Sarabi.
And
who ends up, of course, being the mother of Simba.
But initially, Taka likes Sarabi. And we need to get into it, but Mufasa does everything he can to help his brother out. He's like the ultimate wingman. And he gets no credit for it.
Nope.
Because Sarabi ends up falling in love with Mufasa. And that's where Taka loses it. And that's when you realize, and it took me a while to realize, that Taka is Scar. Because you kept saying, well, shouldn't that be his brother, like Scar? And it wasn't until he got upset with his brother that I realized, oh, this is going to be Scar.
Well, we get hints about that, though, that are very leading.
Like what?
From Timon and Pumbaa.
Oh, sure. They keep saying, I know who Taka's going to be. I know who Taka's going to be. We need to get to them, too.
Okay.
But anyway, they do make it to Malele. But Taka is mad. So he decides to tip off the white pride as to where Malele is.
Who they're calling in the film the Outsiders.
The Outsiders. I feel like white pride would have been better. But,
yes, very S.E. Hinton, yes.
But they get to Malele, and as soon as, I didn't even mention, kind of early on in their journey with the three, Mufasa, Taka, and Sarabi, they meet Rafiki, a young Rafiki, who was my favorite character.
A mandrill.
A mandrill. He is not a baboon, but...
Also a stray, an outcast.
He's also a stray. And then Sarabi, before she was displaced, her father gave her like a little familiar, this bird named Zazu.
Yeah.
Who was annoying.
Zazu.
But all the five of them make it to Malele. And before they can even take 3 steps in there, guess who's behind them? The white pride. And they're like, we're running shit. Everywhere the sun hits, it's ours. And immediately Mufasa tells, and it's packed with animals.
Yep.
So I think it's funny that everyone thinks this place is fake, and literally everyone and their mama is there, including Mufasa's mom. But anyway.
His bio mom.
Mufasa gives this speech like, y'all have to help me because if you let them take over the lions, they're coming for you fools next. And immediately all the animals...
Well, this
gossipy ass giraffe is like, we stand with Mufasa.
No, but first she's like, it seems like you just brought trouble to us, so.
Which honestly was what I would have thought. Right. And we need to get into it. But the kind of lessons this movie is sharing. But the other animals in the kingdom decide to help, and there's a final showdown with Mufasa and Kiros. And it looks like Kiros is going to kill Mufasa when all of a sudden Taka decides to act right and help out his brother. But Kiros whoops his ass, and that's how Taka gets the scar. But then Mufasa ends up drowning Kiros. So he comes out of that cave, and the cave where the water was, there's a lot of like supernatural things going on in this movie that I didn't quite understand.
Spiritual
is probably the better word. But like there's like an earthquake that only hits this one mountain, and that is what creates Pride Rock. So as Mufasa comes out of Pride Rock, everyone's like, Mufasa is the king. And he's saying, well...
No, we're all equals.
We're all equal.
He's like,
Although the movie is called The Lion King, so clearly you re-upped on that or reneged on it because you are the king. But then he finds out his mom is there. And then his brother comes, groveling up to him. And Mufasa immediately tells everyone, as long as I'm the king, even though you just said I'm not the king, as long as I'm the king, my brother has a home. But then he tells his brother, I can never call you by your name. So Taka says, you can call me Scar. And then he runs off.
A drag queen was born.
Yes. And then, so I think the weirdest component of the film is the film opens with Nala, Beyonce, kind of like looking like she's scared and hiding under a rock. And then that's it. We don't see her for 2 hours. And then the final scene of the movie is now that Kiara, Blue Ivy, is told about her grandfather, all of a sudden Nala just strolls up.
A storm has also passed.
And the storm has passed. And it's like, well, where the hell have you been? She had a baby. And then we see Kiara trying to tell her little brother, who can't talk, she's trying to recount the story of Mufasa. The end.
Yep, that's about it. That is it. There we have it.
Okay, what did I like?
Well, definitely not the script by Jeff Nathanson, my lord.
But in the last film, the 2019 film, I complained about how it felt small. In this film, it does feel more grand because we're going a lot of places and there are different, we're in the mountains.
But it's like a Land Before Time narrative.
I was trying to stick with the positives first.
Oh, sure, sorry.
But I think I like that it feels more grand. I think that the animation looks good for the most part. And I think like Blue Ivy did a good job. I really liked the voice of young Rafiki.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's about it.
Yeah, I
really didn't like this story. And I guess if it's for kids, I don't know what these messages are. It just feels so like, we can get into it. But the way the story is told is old Rafiki is telling Kiara. And of course, Timon and Pumbaa are there, voiced by
Seth Rogen and Billy Eichner.
And I just thought they were so annoying because this go round, they're more self-aware. So they keep referencing the old movie.
And the stage play.
They're breaking the fourth wall. There's even a point when one of them tries to sing and they go, oh, you shouldn't, the lawyers are going to get on us. And then he still kind of sings it a little bit and then goes, you sang that song for 6 years and so did everyone else. Like, I didn't quite understand why they're doing that.
No.
And then immediately after, so then we're introduced to them and Rafiki saying that he's going to tell Kiara about her grandfather. Then we meet young Mufasa Cub with his parents.
Voiced by Keith David and Annika Noni Rose, who love both of them.
And I really enjoy both of those actors. But I think that the scene, it was just so corny because we get them walking around being very earnest about how wonderful life is. And
before we go kill this antelope or what?
But we need to get food. And then it's also like there's a drought. And so there hasn't been rain in like 24 moons or something. Yeah. And that's when we hear about Malele. And then all of a sudden, a raindrop falls and hits Mufasa in the nose. And he's like, what is that? Isn't he older than 24 days? Is this the first time he's seen
24 moons? Yes.
24 moons?
Annika Noni Rose has a line. She goes, rain, rain, we finally have rain. And that line reading was pure hokum. That was equivalent of Ann Baxter in 10 Commandments going, Moses, Moses.
It was corny. And then immediately, of course, the rain causes flooding. And then you get the parents screaming. It just... when I think about the Lion King cartoon, which I have not seen in more than 30 years, I still remember some key songs and key moments. Of course, when the dad dies and falls off. Like, I feel like this was trying to give that, but it just felt corny. the mom is screaming like, look into my eyes and take it step by step. And
it's empty. It
just feels so empty.
It's soulless.
And then a big elephant has been caught in the waters. And so Mufasa's holding on to like a tree or something that's kind of affixed to a dam. And then the elephant comes and breaks the dam. And Mufasa gets swept away. And yeah, I thought that was a rough start to this journey.
To be fair, but even going back even further, before Rafiki is telling Blue Ivy the story, we get Donald Glover as Simba out on Pride Rock giving this nonsense monologue, and all these animals just sitting and watching. And I'm like, who wanted to come to this all hands meeting?
And
like,
who is he? He's not the king.
Like,
because we're told that he's like a commoner.
But
I don't know.
But it's just like, why are all these animals, half of who he might eat at any given time, being like, yeah, let's listen to him talk about the continuation of his family. Like, why do they care?
Then Mufasa's like floating on like a piece of wood in the river and finally stops when all of a sudden Taka shows up. And I thought he was so annoying.
Yeah.
I thought he was so annoying. And then he goes, I have a secret or something. You want to know what it is? You're about to die. And then we see there are alligators in the water. And Taka saves Mufasa by pulling him up before. Well, actually, he doesn't save him. Eshe does.
Eshe does, yes.
And then she goes, you ought to be lucky those were younger alligators and they're too afraid to attack. I just thought all of that like was so odd and annoying.
But also like an obvious callback to the 1994 film with Taka, aka Scar, clamping onto his paws as he's hanging over a precipice, because that's repeated in this. And then, of course, at the denouement of Mufasa in The Lion King.
Okay, then, I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just from scene to scene, I was not impressed. Then we meet Taka's dad, and him being so anti-outsider and just being so mean to this little stray cub. I think we should have been introduced to the white pride first, so that we understand that there's a reason why he doesn't want strays. He's afraid.
There's an imminent threat.
But then when we meet the white pride, it's like, well, clearly this little cub is not the problem. Because the white pride, they're all like these albino lions.
Yeah, I don't know. See,
so why?
And that, of course, was a way to differentiate, because the race of the two cubs to the tree to determine whether Mufasa can stay with his new adoptive family, it was hard to differentiate which cub is which, who is who.
That's another problem I had is I think, because this is meant to look like live action, all these lions look the same.
And that's why we get the white pride.
So there were many moments when I wasn't clear if I was looking at Mufasa, Taka, or Sarabi, Sarabi, Kohlrabi, Sapporo, whatever her name is. Okay, then we get from the scene where we first meet the dad, a key line for Taka, which is that the dad is mad that Taka let Mufasa win. And then he chastises him, and then he tells him that deceit is the tool of a great king. So that's the lesson Taka has learned and keeps with him. Okay, the music. I only remember 2 songs. One of them is when we get a little montage of now that Taka and Mufasa get to stay together, even though Mufasa has to live with the females and Taka lives with the males. They have a little montage where they're singing, my brother, and then they get a little older, like teenagers. I hated that song.
That was so corny, I was getting chills. Like, I had to turn away.
Then when we meet the white pride and they come to take over Taka's family's little area, then we have Kiros singing a song that was, I mean, it's camp. Because he's singing bye-bye.
It's called Bye-Bye.
Bye-bye.
And I think Lin-Manuel Miranda has to be dragged a bit, because that is one of the worst villainous songs I've ever
Because
heard.
I can remember Scar's song.
Be Prepared.
Be Prepared. I mean, from 30 plus years, well, that's not true because I saw the 2019 and I saw Lion King on Broadway. But that song is so memorable.
Well, the Nazi fascist formation of the marching hyenas, like there was like inherent terror in there.
But this Kiros song was laughable. And then his pride, he has 2 female lions who are like witches.
I don't know.
And their accents
Are wild. One sounds like Shirley Henderson, and one sounds like this line would be from that region.
it just is so weird. I don't understand.
It's very off-putting. Remember the villains remember Whoopi Goldberg and Cheech Marin as the hyenas? Like, just such character. None of that is apparent here.
Okay, then we learn about Rafiki. He's a stray because apparently the little, what kind of animal is he? A mandrill?
Rafiki's a mandrill, I guess.
He lives with other mandrills in the trees. Well, wherever they live, they're all in the trees, and we see that they've been scared because a cheetah tried to attack them. And just out of the blue, they're all blaming Rafiki. Mm-hmm. They're all saying that he's basically like a witch doctor or something, and he does all this weird stuff. And they also say that that's why his leg doesn't work. Like someone's trying to drag his ass. But I didn't understand, when did his leg stop working?
I don't know.
He walks normally.
He seems to.
And at the point where he gets his walking stick, which we'll get to, he didn't walk with a limp. I was very confused by his need for a walking stick. But he basically gets booted out of his community. Mm-hmm. And I was confused. And there is a female mandrill who is trying to stick up for him. Like, look at what he's done for us. He helped bring rain, food. He even like cured someone who was sick. And they're like, no. I didn't think that worked for me. That being said, I did think that character was the most fun. And if I had to say who a movie should have been based off of, it should have been based off Rafiki.
Well, but again, every opportunity to have some kind of emotional potency is lost. Like, we should feel something about this animal, this mammal being outcast from their community because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like, but you don't feel anything. Everything is so truncated. Just like we're herky-jerky everywhere.
Well, getting back to The Land Before Time, I mean, that's a dark film with a lot of emotion. And I remember seeing it as a kid being traumatized. And then we recently rewatched it like a couple years ago.
Effective.
And it's still effective. And I think this movie feels like it could have been something like that. Because we get their journey and they're being chased by the white pride. And there's a moment when it looks like they're going to get hemmed up. So Sarabi and Mufasa have different ideas of how to handle it. Because there are a bunch of elephants around. Mm-hmm. Mufasa's saying, I can ask the elephants to help us. And Sarabi's like, no, I have a different plan. She's going to, basically, when the white pride comes, she's going to take a beehive and knock it down to cause a stampede. And that's what she does. And in the process, a lot of things happen. One of them is that, what is her name?
Sarabi.
Sarabi falls and kind of goes unconscious. So Mufasa has to like grab her and save her life. Mm-hmm. Taka runs away scared, just like he did previously, which we didn't mention. Mm-hmm. I'll get back to that. And then Rafiki is hanging on by a thread from like a tree branch. So when the white pride is finally scared away because the elephant stampede, Rafiki falls from the branch and he decides, oh, this is my walking stick. Again, don't know why he needs it. But an integral thing to take away from this scene is when Sarabi wakes up, she asks, who saved me? And Mufasa goes, Taka did. Mm-hmm. Keeping in mind that prior to that, Taka had said he likes her. And because Mufasa is like a skilled, his sense of smell is heightened. He can tell that wherever she's from, there's a certain kind of a duck flower. So he tells Taka, talk to her about the duck flower. So he's already thrown his homie a bone multiple times to try to push Sarabi in like towards him. And then this is the ultimate one. He's like, yeah, he saved your life. And even Rafiki's looking at him like, that's a mess. So I think in lieu of like everything that Mufasa has done for Taka, it is so crazy to me that when because they finally realize they have to cross this like snowy mountain, and Taka overhears Mufasa and Sarabi talking. Mm-hmm. And she blows up Taka's spot. Mm-hmm. She's like, I know he didn't do any of this shit. And Mufasa's still trying to act like, no, Taka's great. And Taka just blows up. He just switches up so fast.
Oh, yeah. He
even changes his voice for a minute to sound more like Scar. Mm-hmm. I didn't like
Jeremy
that.
Irons.
I didn't like
or
that.
Chiwetel. Yes, but I mean, I do feel like there's human behavior that aligns with that, with children that grow up thinking, with a silver spoon in their mouth, thinking that they are special, and then the moment the world tells them they're not, because, you know, that's
Well,
the
you're
world.
right, because he's repeatedly told, like, you have royal blood in you, Mufasa does not. Initially, like earlier on, before they were all broken up, because Mufasa is forced to hunt with the females, there's a moment where, like, Eshe and Mufasa are out hunting with Taka, and they're attacked by other lions.
They're attacked by two of the White Pride.
Yes.
Notably, Mufasa kills the son of Kiros, which is...
Oh, that's important.
That's the instigation for them trailing them.
I missed a big part, yeah. Mufasa ends up killing Kairos' son to protect Eshe, his, like, foster mom. But even more important is that Taka's ass ran away. So when they get back, it's clear that the two of them have been in a fight. And the king is like, what the hell happened? And Eshe says, oh my gosh, we got attacked. If it weren't for Mufasa, I would be dead. And then she realizes, like, oh my gosh, so I just told on my son. And the king is mad at Taka. Like, you ain't shit. How could you run away from your mom? And that's when he tells him deceit is a tool for good leaders, or a great tool for leaders. Okay. Something else that really bothered me, I know in a cartoon, like in the Lion King, the cartoon, we're not going to see them devouring gazelle and ripping it.
No, we don't need to show children carnage.
No, we don't. But in this film, they mention being hungry and not eating and needing to eat like 4 times. Right?
Yes.
And it's a live action movie. And then they finally get to Malele, where there is nothing but food. It is a whole ass buffet.
It's a poo-poo platter. Yes.
And never once, they even talk about how we're all one. Make it make sense, because one of your friends is going to have to get eaten. Because lions don't eat grass. And maybe people are going to not like that I'm saying that, but it just seems so crazy. Like, why even bring up the fact that they're not eating then?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I just felt like I was crazy.
Everything is too rushed. Like nothing, there's no finesse to this. Because there's a way that you could elegantly introduce things of that nature.
Because I feel like if I had a kid and I let them watch this, I would have to explain, like...
Let's go watch some Nat Geo.
I'd have to have them watch Nat Geo to see, like, this is what they actually do.
Right, because the way... but then the other themes that it's presenting, this monarchy established by the lions, this hierarchy is kind of repellent and not really addressed, at least not in this film. But these lions, again, I've already used the words genocide and refugee crisis, but these lions, all of them are colonizers.
They are, because let me tell you something. So basically what they did, Mufasa, Taka, and Sarabi, and Rafiki, and that damn Zazu, they basically...
They're pilgrims.
Yeah, they trespassed into someone's home.
Brought trouble with
them, then asked the people who are indigenous to this area, you need to help me. Like, they dragged them into this mess. They helped them succeed, and then now, for some reason, they should be
Here's the
in
keys.
charge.
Here's the key. I'll make the mortgage payment. Here's the keys to my place. No.
I know it's not meant to be that, but
No,
the way
but-
it, like, I just don't think that it works. Like, I just don't like that messaging. I don't think Mufasa is...
And I think it plays that way because it's too rushed. There's an elegance missing from the script, the music, everything. Like, I don't know why the time... It just seems like the time wasn't taken to really articulate what's going on.
I agree. I also think for them, they were so quick to not only like want to support Mufasa, but then they immediately make him king. So then I'm thinking, did these inhabitants of Malele have a king? Was Mufasa's dad the king before he died?
They had a bunch of other lions that had been displaced. Those weren't leading the other animals.
Right. So I just don't understand why immediately they're like, he's the king. What? He's not of royal blood. No one knew of his ass except his mama was there, and maybe she talked about him a little bit. I would have preferred this movie be more about these two brothers and how their relationship was fractured. That
Yes.
led to us knowing who Scar is. And how did he become the Lion King?
What we needed was for that relationship between the brothers to be built up in such a way that the dissolution of it is tragic. That we are left feeling something.
For a movie to be called The Lion King, I think it needs more than a 10-minute. That's all we get is 10 minutes of him bringing trouble, asking for help. He barely kills Kiros. It's really more that Kiros drowned because a big rock was coming. So it's like, I don't think that this makes sense that he's the king, but okay.
No, and then Malele and his lordship of it, that's like, what, the British royal family? Doesn't really matter?
My final note is, I didn't feel emotional at any moment. Even when Mufasa is reunited with his mother, that felt very like,
Yeah, he's where's Dad?
And she kind of goes like,
God.
You already know. She doesn't even say he's gone. And that's it.
Yeah, that's
I know people are going to be so mad. I don't think this movie is garbage. I just think it's kind of boring, uninspired.
Like a lot of things, it's pointless. The rehash,
and I didn't need this.
The rehash of these properties. Let's move on to tell other stories, shall we?
What would you give Mufasa the Lion King?
2. And I think that's being really kind.
I did not care for this. And I'm sure this wasn't meant for me, but I'm giving it 2 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.